Hi everyone. I was reading Numbers chapter 22 about Balaam. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but the prophet who was approached by King Balak for cursing Israel, who was encroaching in his territory. Basically, the king Balak wanted prophet Balaam to go and curse the Israelites because he was afraid of them. He was afraid, knowing that the God of Israel was with them and he would favor Israel in any battle. So he didn't even want them close to his territory or his borderline. So he was summoning a prophet named Balaam to go and curse them out. And he offered them all kinds of money. And the question has always been that Balaam did seek the counsel of God in his attempt to go and, fulfill the request of the king Balak. So people say, why did God get mad at Balaam for going when God told him to go? But if you go back, initially God told them, no, you are not to curse Israel. They are blessed people. So he already gave him instructions not to. But every time that Balaam even entertained the idea, every time that the king Balak sent new soldiers to him, offering him money, saying, please come and do this. And I think he sent them 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And all 3 times, Balaam said, well, stay here overnight. Let me go ask for God's blessing. But God had already told him, no, you're not going to do this because Israel is a blessed people. But eventually, what God ended up doing is, I think, testing Balaam's heart and intention by giving him permission to go. He said, okay, you want to go? Go. Not in these words, but I think God expected the prophet Balaam to know better, because these Moabites were enemies of Israel. They were women that worshipped idols, and they persuaded and influenced Israel men to worship idols. They were a bad influence on Israel. So I think initially God really expected Balaam to know the truth and to know common sense, kind of like, no, you're not to go and curse our people, the people who worship me, the people that are blessed, the people that I have chosen. And yet Balaam kept entertaining the idea 2 or 3 times. Every time King Balak sent his soldiers, he kept entertaining the idea. In today's day, it's like equivalent to us going to a pastor and offering a pastor a lot of money and saying, hey, pastor, can you go and bless these pagan worshipers to, if we give you this much money, just go ahead and bless them for us. Now, a pastor should know better than to go bless pagan worshipers. He should know that that's not acceptable in the eyes of God in the first place. So I think God had expectations from Balaam to know that these were Israelites that were coming out of Egypt, were the blessed people. They were the chosen people. And so he should have immediately shut down the idea. As soon as Balak came to him with these soldiers, he should have said, no, I will not do this. These are blessed people. You can go. But he kept entertaining it. So eventually, I think God gave him to his desires, and he wanted to test him out to see if he was going to be tempted by the money that was offered. And so it sure was a temptation for him, because he eventually he pressed and pressed until he heard what God wanted him to say. And so sometimes we push our agenda on God. We push so hard, even though it's obvious, and I'll show you in a minute why it was obvious that this was not the right choice, because he ran into trouble along the way. 3 times an angel of God tried to stop him on the road and block his way. You know how you in life sometimes try to push something, an agenda, and it just doesn't go well. Things kind of fall apart a little bit, and that's because it's not God's will. And we all should have some kind of common sense to know that if it doesn't go smoothly, that it isn't from God. You know what I mean? And we should have enough common sense to say no from the beginning to something that is obviously not of God. And Balaam did not have that discerning heart, and he was tempted by money. He was tempted by greed. And so he kept pushing the agenda until God gave him permission to do it so he can teach him a lesson. And along the way, he blocked him 3 times. And even then, he told him, didn't I tell you to not speak and to not move? Even though eventually I gave you permission to do so. But every time Balaam opened his mouth, rather than cursing, he ended up blessing the Israelites. And I think this is a very, very strong lesson that common sense has to go with the Word of God. Our instincts have to go with the Word of God. We need to have logic. We need to put the whole picture together. Who are we talking to? Who are we entertaining? Right from the beginning, Balaam should have known that Moabites approaching him, or the Moabite king approaching him, who wants to harm God's people, should have been an automatic no. It isn't something you need to go to God and entertain God with. It's like, God, should I go and curse your church? No. What do you think God is going to tell you? I mean, that's just so obvious, and I think God took the opportunity to teach Balaam a lesson here. He eventually gave him permission, and then he blocked his way, and he got upset with him along the road, and he made an example of him, and he made an example of King Balak. And eventually, I think God made his point. And logic and common sense has to come into play sometimes. I hope this helped. This was in chapter 22, 23, and 24 of the book of Numbers in the Bible. This is my take on it. Let me know what you think.